Thank you so much for your introduction, Simon. So I will, since you've already introduced ourselves, I will just start the presentation. So the objective of our project was to develop multimodal materials and tasks for heritage learners of Korean within the framework of multiliteracies. So the purpose of the tasks were to engage students in analyzing, evaluating, and applying the multimodal text they encounter through a critical lens. So the focus was on the critical lens. And the second objective was to avoid implicitly imposing the prevalent cultural norms and practices. So the students have the opportunity to analyze the text with critical lens and their critical thinking. And third objective was to acquire a higher order thinking skills and also intercultural competence. So I will briefly talk about the heritage learners of Korean at Columbia. So most of the heritage learners of Korean are students who grew up in a home or a community where a language other than English was used and have acquired a certain degree of proficiency in the language. So although their proficiency levels and types vary greatly, commonly, literacy skills tend to lag behind aural and oral skills. Also, they lack confidence in their Korean outside home. So how do we place the students? Students with near zero literacy skills, like they don't know the Korean alphabet Hangul, are usually placed into traditional non-heritage courses like Introductory Korean A or First Year Korean 1. And students who know Hangul, the Korean alphabet, and some basic sentence patterns, they are placed into accelerated Korean for heritage speakers after taking the placement test. So in our Korean language program, we offer first year Korean to fifth year Korean, and the accelerated Korean, it covers the first year Korean and second year Korean of the non-heritage track. So upon accelerated Korean will be completed in 1 year, whereas the first year Korean, second year Korean for non-heritage section, it will take 2 years for them to complete. And for the third year Korean, we have separate tracks for non-heritage Korean and heritage Korean. And from the fourth year, it's just mixed. But fifth year Korean, mostly they are heritage students. So the proficiency level that the students enter the class for the accelerated Korean, they like average, it's novice, mid, or high. And for the third year Korean heritage section, the starting point is intermediate or high. So Jiyoung will continue.
Okay. So Eunice, could you just play the video first?
Mm-hmm.
Coming out to my Korean mom.
Mom, what would happen if I got...
또 시작이다, 진짜.
What if I got married, but it was to a man?
뭐 어떠냐? 하면 하지.
So you would be okay if I married a man?
꼭 그런 옛날에 우리가 생각하는 허스밴드 와이프가 아니라 일생을 살아가면서 같은 짝으로서 일생을 같이 간다. 그런 뜻도 볼 수 있지. Even though same sex, the man and the man, but the husband and wife에서 동반자로, 그러니까 companion together for the life, they rely on, depend on each other, 그런 거 life. 그게 그 사람들이 생각하는 행복이 되면은 누가 그거를 간섭할 수는 없는 거야.
But what if I got a tattoo?
그거는 싫어.
Okay. All right. The English subtitle is too small, so I'm not sure if you are able to read the subtitles. But this Instagram post captures so what our heritage speakers of Korean are like at their home. And this Korean guy is coming out to his Korean mom. And she is a very progressive mom as a Korean, and she's just very cool with with her son being gay and marrying another guy. But when her son asked her, what about a tattoo? What if I got a tattoo? And she doesn't hesitate to say no. Okay. And I think this post captures why we decided to employ the multiliteracies pedagogy for our heritage learners, because heritage language learners, when communicating with their families at home, mix their parents' language with the language of the mainstream society, which is English in this case, not to compensate deficiencies in their heritage language proficiency, but as a strategic and meaningful choice for various social reasons. And our argument is that this choice aligns with the premise of multiliteracies, which emphasizes not adhering to a single standard, but respecting various value systems and modes of expression, communication. And multiliteracies underscores understanding and respecting diverse languages and cultures, emphasizing the enjoyment of interactions between different languages and cultures. And also, many of our Korean American students come to class with a hybrid identity, often feeling that they don't fit neatly into either American or Korean categories. Through multiliteracies, we wanted to help them develop the ability not to see themselves as having two separate minds or hearts within them, but rather to analyze diverse values and make choices aligned with their own preferences. And furthermore, we aimed to assist them in taking pride in their identity as Korean Americans and empowering them to become competent contributors in today's global society. Eunice, could you...
Coming out to my Korean mom.
No. Okay.
Sorry.
All right. So I wrote down a script for this theoretical background sections because I didn't want to mumble and fumble. So I'm just going to read our theoretical backgrounds in designing these tasks. Okay, in a multiliteracies pedagogy, not only semiotic conventions, but also symbolic associations play a pivotal role in the meaning making of available resources. And these conventions allow students to convey ideas and messages through recognized forms and meanings. And building upon this foundation, the creative and transformative application of these conventions leads to the innovative use of existing symbols and meanings to generate novel forms of expression. And finally, as a student progresses, the repurposing or recontextualization of existing resources follows. And this process involves taking familiar elements and imbuing them with new significance, often challenging traditional interpretations and fostering a deeper understanding of the original text. And together, these three elements form a continuum in which semiotic conventions provide a base and creative application breathes life into established norms, and repurposing or recontextualization as layers of depth and nuance to the communication. Okay, according to the New London Group, each task within a multiliteracies approach encompasses 4 pedagogical components: situated practice, overt instruction, critical framing, and transformed practice. Eunice, could you go to the next? Yeah. Pejani and Menke explains this in more concrete and tangible terms. Beginning with the experiencing phase, students immerse themselves in the socio-cultural context and genre of the introduced text, articulating their impressions and overall comprehension. And moving to conceptualization, students work on form-meaning relationships, employing semantic mapping to identify key vocabulary and grammar aligned with the text theme and tone. And in the analyzing phase, The phase required students to critically evaluate the symbolic message conveyed, hypothesizing its social consequences and expressing their feelings and thoughts. And finally, in the applying phase, students employ their acquired skills and knowledge by creating new meanings, and typically through summaries, essays, and critiques. However, they may extend their creativity by crafting new texts or genre, such as poems, memes, podcasts, or posters. And doing so fosters a holistic integration of language acquisition and cultural learning and creative use of language.
Oops, I'm sorry.
No problem. Okay. Okay. So when proposing the current project, Eunice and I expected to enjoy several benefits employing a multiliteracies pedagogy for our heritage students. First, process-oriented literacy education emphasizes the significance of brainstorming and drafting in the learning journey. This approach goes beyond traditional product-oriented learning and focusing on an outcome on the textual level. A process-oriented approach to teaching literacy emphasizes socially situated meaning-making by encouraging students to engage with various viewpoints and practices. It equips them with the ability to navigate and maneuver through the complexities of a rapidly changing world. In addition, it addresses the growing linguistic and cultural diversity of our heritage Korean learner population in Colombia, and providing them with essential tools to not only master literacy skills, but also to foster a deeper understanding of their own heritage and the positioning of themselves in the broader global context. And this holistic approach also serves as a valuable foundation for fostering critical thinking and intercultural competence among students, which is also the key educational goal of our institution's core curriculum.
So next, we will talk about the topics for the task that we developed. Most of the task topics were based on the themes introduced in the textbook. So we would try to follow the themes in the textbook, go along with the themes in the textbook. So these are the chapters and the topics that we covered in the multiliteracies task. I will just go over some of them. So for example, Chapter 1 is introduction. So for the multiliteracies top task topics, we chose age, hierarchy, and politeness. And then, for example, Chapter 5 is the theme is college life. And for the topics, task topics, we chose 눈치, key to establishing a good interpersonal relationship in college. And Chapter 7, the theme was shopping and trends. And for the multiliteracies task, we covered lookism in Korea. So most of the themes are something that we can, it's like it has social, cultural aspect in it, and something that students can actually analyze it with their critical lens, and that requires critical thinking skills. Another example is the accelerated Korean and the spring semester. They cover Koreans abroad, and Chapter 13, regions and history of Korea, and the topic would be in search of their roots and regions and history of Korea. In third year Korean, we also use the integrated Korean textbook, and some of the topics covered are like Chapter 3 is dating culture in Korea, and for the task topic we chose dating culture and feminism in Korea. For the Chapter 6 address terms and interpersonal relationships, we covered collectivism and hierarchism in Korea. In the spring semester, there's Chapter 10 where it's housing in Korea. And for the task topics, we cover community-based life in Korea. Also, chapter 12 is about Korean folktales and proverbs, and we cover the traditional cultural values and practices and compare it with the modern cultural values and practices. So most of the theme topics covered in the task are something that we can actually critically analyze. And Jiyoung will continue with the designing task.
Let's do this. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So in designing and implementing the task, we try to use culturally rich, authentic materials. So a lot of authentic materials that cover the cultural topic. And second, we use multimodal materials since it's in the multiliteracies framework. And then third, we try to include the target grammar and vocabulary in implementing the task. And fourth, we choose materials relevant to students because that's more interesting to the students. And then next, we try to avoid teaching the prevalent cultural practice and symbols and leave it open so that they can critically analyze. And we remain open-minded and empathetic. So, Jiyoung.
So let me show as one task that I implemented in my class, in my Accelerated Korean 1 last year. And the theme was college life and social life. And Eunice? Okay. So in the experiencing stage, the target grammar is plain style. We have 7 speech styles in Korean, and in real life, we use 4 of them. And this is the last speech style that I teach in the class, in the course. And this speech style is really important because this written plain style is used in formal genres, and my heritage students are not familiar with formal contexts and how to use language in those contexts. So since the theme was interpersonal relationships and social life, and I listed some famous sayings, wise sayings, translated into Korean in plain style, and then I had them to match the sayings and the people who said those. And these 5 famous people are all different in personalities and what they believed in, right? So and they're all related to my students too, because Warren Buffett went to Columbia and Confucius, right, in elect department. So the students have to read the sayings and they interpret it on the textual level, and then they just enjoy and this social cultural context and the context in which the plain style is used. Okay, and then all right, and then in the conceptualizing stage, and they practice using the target structures, grammar structures, and these 4 structures are typically used in giving advice, like the famous things that I just introduced to you. And then they, using these forms, they fill in the blanks, they conjugate the structures and then fill in the blanks. And also in terms of the content, these pieces of advice are relevant to the Korean teacher, the prevalent cultural practices in Korea among college students. Eunice? Okay. And then I spent most time in the analyzing stage, and I introduced various types of materials. For example, the first one is infographic, and it's a survey results with college students about the difficult relationships with their 선배, which is senior students in college. And Korean society is a hierarchical society. And you have to use polite speech styles and then differential demeanor with dealing with your 선배. And then I also used the headlines of newspaper articles and images, and then like some fun, what is 짤 in English, memes, to show how 후배, junior students bow to their senior students. And then I asked them what they think about, that's okay, fine. What they thought about, how they felt about these practices in Korea. And then I asked their own opinions about how to manage a good interpersonal relationship with your friends and juniors or senior students. Okay, and then I listed the 4 speech styles, and then I highlighted the target speech style, and then I had them post their own advice in plain style. Yes. Okay, so this is just one example of their work, and there are many errors, but they're using the plain style, and then and they are expressing their feelings and then their own preferences for difficult interpersonal relationships. Okay, and I also introduced the 눈치, and 눈치, we have the direct English translation for the expression, but if I try, I think the closest expression would be like a social awareness, or the ability to read the room without being told explicitly. So we have a lot of idiomatic expressions, including 눈치, and I chose a drama clip to show, to illustrate these idioms. And I used the Camtasia that I bought for a garage grant, and I edited and added subtitles and highlighted. Okay, so Eunice, can you play the video?
야, 근데 송선배 왜 그러냐? 나 아까 완전 체할 뻔했잖아. 끝까지 진짜 집요하더라.
아, 원래 캐릭터 특이하잖아. 지가 병원 왕딴 줄도 모른다며?
원래 공부만 파는 애들이 눈치 없잖아. 강 선배 말이 학교 다닐 때부터 유명했다던데?
오늘의 키포인트. 전화 밀도가 뭐다? 넓이와 길이 그리고 부피에 존재하는 전화의 총량이다. 어때? 이제 전화 밀도에 대해 대충 알겠지? 자, 그럼 오늘은 여기까지.
선생님! 무한대에서 V는 0이면요. 반지름이 0.15m인 도체공의 포텐셜이 1300V일 때 도체공의 전하는 어떻게 되는 건가요?
비장 절제한 ITP 환자. 퇴원 전 어떤 백신 예방 접종해야 하지? 자네?
네, 네. 잠시.
메닝고코쿠스, 스트랩토코쿠스, 헤모필루스 인플루엔자입니다. 그리고 참고로 교수님이 깜빡하신 것 같은데 오늘 수수로 감염증 레포트 제출일입니다.
아, 맞다.
Eunice, I can
나이가 굳어서 와.
네.
와.
It's too long. Okay. Okay, and then while watching the video, they fill in the blanks in the play style again. And more importantly, and then this is a very popular poem in Korea, and every Korean knows this poem. And this poem delivers a message that how important interpersonal relationships are, and then the meaning is the real meaning. I mean the meaning of our own existential meaning is found with relationships with other people, and then it's important to I mean, it's really hard. It's poetic meanings. So what we communicate with eyes without verbal communication means, and it's really important. And our eyes and our communication how we communicate our feelings and attitudes with our eyes is more important than our gestures or words. And then I guided my students to interpret the meaning of this poem with this series of questions. Eunice, you can go on until question 4. And also this poem is written in plain style because it's a poem. Okay, and in the application stage, applying stage, at that time, my students' proficiency level was in novice high or intermediate low at most. So they couldn't do more. They couldn't produce like a lot, not so much. So I asked them to rewrite this poem and leave in blanks where the important words go, and actually they produced really funny poems. To give you an example, for example, there was one student who their work sometimes was not really profound, but it was funny. One student really loved samgyeopsal. It's a pork belly barbecue dish in Korea. And then he said, before I called your name, you were nothing more than a pork. When I called your name, you came to me and became samgyeopsal, like that. And then he said it's really important for him, not only because he loved the meat, pork, but also it's when he has had a samgyeopsal with his friends and then talk and build good relationships with them. Okay. And another option for my students was to create a meme, and I presented an example in plain style. And then, so this meme, the first meme shows like ageism and like some kind of a hierarchy, even though these are Avengers, right? Americans. And the second and the third is one of the examples that my students produced. Okay. And the first one shows that even though she doesn't feel anything or she doesn't agree, but when she texts with her friends, she pretends that it's funny. Okay. And then the last one is that this guy, he was actually a veteran, a GS student, and he said that a good interpersonal relationship is important because without it, it could lead to a disaster like mass shooting. Okay.
And so I will show you another example that I implemented in the third year Korean 2 spring semester. Chapter was Korean folktales and proverbs. So in the experiencing phase, I just show students this image and they try to figure out the underlying message of this proverb, which is literal translation would be like give one more rice cake to the one you hate. And students share their thoughts about the image. And then I will show them another short video clip related to the proverb. So this is a reality show, and this woman actually talks about her episode when she was traveling overseas, there was someone who really not like directly bothered her, but was kind of bothering her. And this, she literally says that if she really, really if she really hates someone, she just ends up loving them. So it kind of goes along with this proverb. And so students talk about how the episode in the video is related to the proverb. And related to this proverb, so the rice cake appears in the proverb, and a lot of Korean proverbs actually have rice cake in it. So I asked the students, why do you think rice cake is used so often in proverbs? And what kind of important message did rice cake have in the past? So we talk about those cultural message in the proverb. And then in the conceptualizing stage, students actually read the story about how this proverb originated from the textbook. And students identify key vocabulary and expressions from the text, from this story. And then I give just blank empty picture cards to them, and students have to summarize and then retell the story using the picture cards with the images that they have created. So this is actually a drawing that one of the students did. And she had really good drawing skills. So I wanted to show you this example, but they use this image to retell the story using these vocabulary that they've learned in this lesson. And then third phase is the analyzing phase. So we identify the traditional cultural values and practices and compare them with the modern values. So first, I have some questions like, is there any similar proverb in English to this one? And just to give you a background of this story, it's about the conflict with mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. And the mother-in-law was very mistreated and looked down and mean to the daughter-in-law. And so the daughter-in-law actually ended up going to a fortune teller and asking how she can get rid of her mother-in-law. And the fortune teller said that you can just prepare something that your mother-in-law really likes and then give it to her for 100 days, and then she will disappear. And it turns out that she doesn't actually die, but the mother-in-law who hated the daughter-in-law dies, and just the mother-in-law who was moved and touched by her attitude actually changes to a very nice, polite, a nice and caring mother-in-law. So if you were in this situation, what would you have done? Would you have just endured and bear with it and sacrifice yourself, or would you have confronted the mother-in-law and try to solve the situation? And also, what would you do if there is someone in your family or someone that you live that you have conflict and keep having conflicts with them? And also from the story, is there anything that you want to change or couldn't understand why they did this? And then next, so I show them 2 short video clips of how in the modern society, daughter-in-laws are and mother-in-law, if they have conflict, what do they do? And so it's MZ generation, they don't really think about how other people think. They just say, if you want to say it, they just say it. So this is actually literal translation is it's you say something and it's a Sprite, a soda, so that it actually what if something in your chest, it just comes out, so you don't have to bear with it. So students compare with the daughter-in-law in the proverb story and the daughter-in-laws in the modern video clips. And we talk about why this kind of change has appeared. And then also, so something more related to their personal life would be a lot of students say they have conflicts with their roommates. So in your college life, have you ever had this kind of situation where you had to what would you do? Would you be nice to someone that you don't like, be nicer, or would you actually confront them, or what would you do in modern society? And do you think this kind of proverb would be helpful in these days? Or when you have a conflict with someone, after reading the actual, someone has an episode they're almost about to go crazy because of their roommate. And what would you do in this kind of situation? So they're more comparing the cultural values of the traditional cultural values and in the present and modern cultural values. So modern, it's more freedom, individualism. They don't really care to sacrifice themselves compared to the past. And then in the applying phase, I asked students to write a parody or like a modern version of a traditional folktale. So they could rewrite the story of the story that we read. We read like a couple in class, or they could do like a modern version of a traditional folktale that they already know. Because students are heritage students, some of the students already know some folktales. So one student would this is another story, so I'll just talk about the one that we read. So they said that instead of giving another rice cake to someone that you hate, you can just avoid them, or I would just not give one more rice cake to someone that you hate. And this is also like just avoid if you can. So I would like to show you an example of a sample student work. So they did digital storytelling. Some students used voice over PowerPoint, or some students made a movie. So this is, do you see the PowerPoint? Yeah.
I see the PowerPoint, but I don't see.
Oh, okay. Then I'm sorry, but let me stop share and share it again. So I'll just share screen and then share sound and just share this again. Do you see it now?
Yep.
Yes.
미운 놈 죽일 수 없다면 이렇게 한다. 2022년에 준과 훈이라는 형제가 있었다. 형 준은 동생 훈한테 많이 구박했고 괴롭혔다. 훈은 형의 구박에 너무 피곤해서 형을 죽일 수 있는 방법을 찾기 시작했다. 잠시 생각한 후에 훈이 한국어 수업에 배웠던 속담을 기억나고 미운 놈 떡 하나 더 준다 라는 속담을 따르기로 결정했다. 그런데 100일 동안 형이 좋아하는 음식을 주는 것은 너무 힘들 것 같아서 포기하고 싶었다. 훈이 다시 생각을 하다가 형은 빵을 좋아한다는 것을 생각나고 심한 땅콩 알레르기가 있다는 것도 생각나서 형한테 몰래 소보로 빵을 주려고 계획을 세웠다. 그 다음 날에
So I will stop here, and sorry for keep switching the slide. But so what happened was, like, instead of like being nice to the one that you hate, she actually gave his brother a pastry that has nut, but his brother has nut allergy. So this was kind of a parody of the original story. And so that was an example of the third year Korean. So I would like to briefly talk about the survey results, some positive responses and challenges. The first was students had an opportunity to reflect on and reconnect with their heritage. So some examples say, I feel like these cultural activities and assignments were meaningful to me because as a Korean American, I was able to learn more about my Korean heritage and traditional practices. Also said, allow me to learn more about the things that I grew up with, but didn't know that much background detail about. So they talked about a lot about their heritage. And then second was they learned more about the culture. So it's beyond grammar and vocabulary. They said that it helped them to practically use the grammar and vocabulary that we were covering, but they also found I also found them interesting because I didn't know that much about Korean culture in Korea. Okay, and they said it helps give a lot of context to words and vice versa. Languages evolve alongside cultures, so it was helpful. And third was language learning in context. So it's with increased relevance. That said, it provides context behind the language that we were learning, as culture is inextricable from language in many cases. And it said that it gave us the opportunity to apply vocabulary concepts grammar, etc. in a different context instead of just filling in the specific conversation in the textbook. They also said it helped them for community building. So they said it was fun to see other classmates work and creativity rather than going over the same assignment in class. And it was a great way to get to know everyone. Each student had different interpretations of the prompts. It was nice to see everyone's personalities. It also, of course, they said it was fun and engaging. It was difficult to come up with, but it was fun to see other people's. It was interesting, and creative assignments were beneficial because they make learning more fun. Also, but they did say they have some challenges for like especially creative assignments like making memes or parody or rewriting the lyrics. For example, they said applying grammar and vocabulary. So trying to apply the grammar and vocabulary that they've learned in creative assignments was a little bit of a challenge. So they said I felt like I had to demonstrate creativity while making sure my grammar was correct. And the challenge, what was challenging though was finding ways to connect personal aspects to the relevant material like grammar structures and vocabulary. Second, said they just demonstrating creativity for the creative assignments was a little bit challenging. So it was hard to think of something original, and challenges are that sometimes the activity was a bit more difficult than the content we were trying to learn. So I felt that completing the assignment became more about the activity than the content. But this was just focusing more on the creative assignments. And finally, our reflection is for some of the challenges were allocating a lot of instructional time. So we had to reduce the time for other activities, including grammar drills, especially for lower level classes. And then second, difficulty to maintain criticality, especially with lower level learners. So if they have to discuss, sometimes translanguaging was necessary. And also it requires creativity on the instructor's end as well, since we have to design the task. This is the end of our presentation, and thank you so much.